I'd like to bring this Paradise Recreation and Park District Board of Directors regular meeting open for Wednesday, December 11th. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome guests here and online. First off, we have a special presentation. No, we missed the roll call. Madam Clerk, can we have the roll call?
Director Belfay?
Here.
Director Stonebreaker?
Here.
Oh, Secretary. Sorry, I'm all thrown off now. I'm going to do Director McGreen.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Steve Broadwick.
I'm secretary.
Oh, I'm thrown off, guys. Sorry. And Chairperson Robert.
Nevertheless,
Anderson.
Secretary Roderick says here.
Okay.
All right,
And
here.
Chairperson Robert. Oh, yeah, no, it's.
They're fine, have on. Okay. We're saving electricity. And now that brings us to a special presentation from Sophia Olivares.
There we go. Thank you for the spotlight. Hello, my name is Sophia Olivares, and good to see those who I have seen before. But for those on the Zoom or the digital world, my name is Sophia, and I am a recreation program specialist with Paradise Recreation and Park District, helping out with the volunteer program and lots of other projects. But for today, I will be talking about the volunteer program and specifically highlighting a special person from it. To give a little background content, the volunteer program has been running, at least with an official volunteer coordinator, since 2020. And with those volunteers who come out and dedicate their hours to help support the district, we have appreciation and incentives for them. With that being said, it's based off of how many hours they dedicate, the different type of projects that they work on, and overall just looking at different events, especially when it comes to different projects. But on top of that, we have a variety of park locations, as you all know, so that is calculated as well. And for today, we are specifically looking at highlighting an individual who has been with us for over a year now, since last August. And this individual has been able to support a variety of different project types, from fuel reduction to gardening to invasive plant removal, events, and even special projects that have came up as well. We're looking at updating volunteer shirts. She has helped out with getting a new design to draft. And with that being said, she has also helped out and been more than eager to jump into a variety of projects, even if she isn't potentially comfortable or if it's new to her. So with that being said, she is more than eager and willing to learn and grow. And it's been something great to see over the past year, especially with her being in high school and finally being able to graduate over the past year and looking at moving on into secondary school and really just seeing what she can do there. But on top of that, her willingness and her dedication to just come out and support the volunteer program has been great, especially when it comes to land stewardship. Just being able to see her work out in the parks and getting along with a lot of other volunteers, it takes a special niche and a special person. So with that being said, looking at the Volunteer of the Year for at least 2024 for the volunteer program, we're looking at highlighting Alina Lucas. We got this cute little smiley face to give to her. But on behalf of myself and the Park District, we're looking at also providing you with a plaque just to highlight for the fact of you getting into over 300 hours, being with us for about a year, and then just really appreciating you being able to support us. So thank you. This is all you. This is all you. Oh. Wait, don't run, don't run.
5, 2, 7.
Nope. Oh, we're going for it.
Did I say something?
If you-
Alyssa?
Speech, okay, yes. Speech.
Hi, my name is Luna Lucas. I really didn't expect to meet so many amazing people coming here and having so many experiences. Sophia has helped me to open up to people. I had social anxiety and she really helped ease that and bring me out into the world, and just this experience has been more than I ever thought it would be, and I'm really grateful for her and all of you.
Well, thank you, Elena. We really appreciate it. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to public comment. If anyone has a comment on something that is not on the agenda tonight. Anybody online, Scott? No, Director. Thank you. Then that brings us to the consent agenda.
I'd like to pull item 3.3 from the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we accept consent agenda items 3.1, 3.2, and 3.4.
Second.
Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk?
Director Stonebreaker,
Aye.
Director Alma Green,
Aye.
Director Mary Belfay,
Aye.
Secretary Steve Rodwick,
Aye.
and Chairperson Robert Anderson.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
Mary?
So I was just wondering if the board is able to get an update on where we stand with all the grants and the work that Mrs. Arbuckle did to tell us, we've had a very brief synopsis of everything of what it was and where we were going, and I just wondered, do we have an update?
Yeah, so a lot of her initial work was in going through all of the documentation associated with all of the grants that are current. So looking at the grant agreements, and then all of the proposals, scope of work, so that she can identify what the project deliverables are, scope of work of each of the various grants. And then looking at the timeline for deliverables for each, if there's different phases to the grant, and what the reporting requirements are, when those requirements are due, what the reimbursement process is, when the reimbursements can be claimed. So that was a lot of the initial work, and she's using that work to go through and create a dashboard. So we're hoping that the dashboard will create some transparency for the public and the board, obviously, so that they can see sort of a map story version. That's the ultimate goal, is the map story behind, okay, here's the project, which has these conceptual plans. And then as it progresses over time, and we have pictures of, for a development project, for example, okay, there's groundwork mobilized at Lake Ridge Park. Here's this phase of the project, so that the public's aware, the board is kept aware. It's also obviously important for district staff. There were so many grants that she was really critical in helping us kind of put everything together, and she's working through that process of creating the dashboard.
So what's a dashboard?
So a dashboard is kind of the synopsis view of, you could see some of the big, we've included it in the past. We need to do that again as part of the district report. We typically have twice a year, or I think it's usually twice a year, when we can step that up and do it quarterly. But the goal is to, it shows what the scope of work is, the due dates, that sort of thing, what's left to do, how much has been spent, how much has been reimbursed.
Right.
And so it's just kind of it was an Excel document.
Okay,
So
I
this
thought
is,
when you said dashboard, I went something online.
It is.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the
It will
goal,
be.
is that it
Okay.
would then be quick to update and then publish online so that then the public has insight into where we're at with all of these projects. Because sometimes, just the website isn't sufficient. And I think people are interested in what are the, what's the timeline? And we can
Right.
communicate some of that stuff through the website. But I think also as we're looking at, budgets and that sort of thing, what's remaining if a project has to get phased, what are the phases? Um,
Right,
and
I understand all that,
so
but my
it's more of a
question,
visual
right,
representation.
but my question was, are we gonna get an updated one soon? Because it's been over a year.
Yeah, we
Okay.
should do that in January.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah.
And to be clear, all the work she's doing, administering these grants is funded within these grants and not general funds.
Correct.
The majority, yes. Lake Ridge is an exception to that because there isn't admin time associated with that grant. So there are some exceptions, but to a large extent, most of them are. She's been instrumental in helping with extension requests. There was one for the BRIC grant recently that she assisted with. But she's also helped with doing reimbursement requests, for example, with the Trails project. That was the most recent one. And those are pretty arduous tasks. So it was incredibly helpful to have her part of that. Some of the workload is shifting. I think the dashboard is probably the big culminating project. And then a lot of it at that point is templated so that we can then bring a lot of more of it back in-house and kind of just keep the progression going.
So when she gets it started, the staff will be able to keep up on it.
Correct.
Is that okay,
That's the goal.
great, thank you.
Mhm.
I make a motion that we approve item 3.3 on the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Madam Clerk?
Director Stonebreaker,
Aye.
Director Alma Green,
Aye.
Director Mary Belfay,
Aye.
Secretary Steve Rodwick,
Aye.
and Chairperson Robert Anderson.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
That brings us to committee reports. Finance Committee. How was your meeting?
Well, all the board members should have a copy of a written report on that meeting. It's part of your packet on page 12. It's pretty straightforward. No key decisions were made necessarily. We were just educated about how funding options may or may not be forthcoming in the not too distant future for us to pursue a loan perhaps, if the district board and the district opts to go that direction. So we were educated on some of the options there. And then the other item that was on the agenda was the staff is in the process of considering converting to electronic timesheets as an option for staff members. And they're just beginning on that process. So our understanding as committee members is that'll come to us at a later date, maybe to the full board sometime this fiscal year. That's pretty much it, right, Steve? I think. And we had some public input as well during our committee meeting. Mr. Stonebreaker was there and he was very helpful in some of his comments and so forth. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, that covers it.
Thank you all. That brings us to old business, neighbor to neighbor, sub-grantee agreements. Chrissy?
Hi there. So at the August board meeting, the board authorized the district manager to execute grants for partner organizations that are that we're able to pass grant funds through the neighbor to neighbor grant to these partner organizations for events, programs, opportunities that align with the grant goals up to $5,000. Anything in excess of that would require board approval. So at the October 9th meeting, we did have our first partner proposals set come in, and several of them were in excess of that $5,000. And so we utilized what I called an umbrella grant, which is basically a similar a grant or agreement with the partners, but allowed for a larger scope of work that could be augmented with additional proposals through the term of the grant that were approved by staff and the grant agency, and a not to exceed budget. So at that October 9th board meeting, the board authorized 12 of those agreements to go through. In November 2nd, the proposals from partner organizations who are seeking neighbor to neighbor grant funds. We got a whole bunch of repeats, partner organizations, and a couple of new ones. And so basically the synopsis of this report is to request grant approval for 2 new organizations, and then one organization that had been authorized for an umbrella agreement, but because they had taken on the project work for another partner that had been approved under the umbrella agreement, who was not able to fulfill the liability insurance requirements that is part of our subgrantee agreement. They weren't able to fulfill it themselves. So another partner organization who had been planning on working with them anyway stepped up and took that on themselves. But by doing so, then reduced their not to exceed limit. So we're looking to basically merge the 2 not to exceed budgets and events, total number of events that can happen through the term of the grant into that entity that did take on that for the other partner. So
What entity was that? Which entity stepped up?
Butte Environmental Council.
Thank
Yeah. And they had replaced essentially the Biochar Coalition. So their insurance requirements went well above what was even in the grant agreement, because they also got event insurance in addition to, the regular liability insurance that's required in the agreement. So that was appreciated. And then I guess actually I should clarify, Habitat for Humanity had been within that $5,000 threshold that the district manager had been able to approve without further board action. So really they are an existing partner organization, but now we're looking to bring them in as an umbrella agreement recipient so that we can then allow them to move forward in excess of that $5,000 threshold that they're capped at right now.
If we approve these, why is this so loud? Anyway, if we approve these tonight, and that's for the next quarter, that'll be taking place January to March of 2025, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
But if you approve the agreement, it could potentially go through the term of the grant, which would be December 31st, 2025.
Do we have any clarification what events Habitat wants to put on?
So this last round, on December 7th, they had a
I
sort of
was
a,
present.
oh, you were? Okay. Yep. So it was basically a housewarming party, a welcome party for the recipients, 3 recipients of the Habitat for Humanity housing. These folks had helped to build their homes and whatnot. So this was kind of a celebration for those folks. And what better way to really be in the neighborhood than at the open, ribbon cutting, so to speak, of these people getting the keys to their new homes. So that was one. The next one is looking at, for next quarter would be build days. So looking at helping them, facilitating, people getting in and helping to build new houses. And then another, I believe the second component of it was a social, sorry, I don't have it at the top of my brain. But that is essentially, one of them's a work party and then one is
Okay.
a social around that.
That's sufficient clarification. Now, we were there. There were more than 100 people there. There were literal ribbon cuttings with the giant Chamber of Commerce scissors. And presenters emphasized the work that not just the homeowners did, but assistance from the community. For example, Mayor Lassonde talked about the work that he did on a day when other veterans came and contributed to the builds. So definitely this is in line with the purpose of the grant, and we would like to support those sorts of efforts here.
Do we have any public comment on this issue?
No, Director.
Then can we get a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve this agenda item 5.1 as presented and explained by staff.
I'll second.
Madam Clerk?
Director John Stonebreaker,
Aye.
Director Al McGrean,
Aye.
Director Mary Belfay,
Aye.
Secretary Steve Rodwick,
Aye.
Chairperson Robert Anderson.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
Christie, are these the homes behind O'Reilly's?
Effectively, yes. They're on Central Park. So yes, you can see them from O'Reilly's.
Now that brings us to new business. District Master Plan extensions and process. Christie?
I could take this one. If you guys can hear me.
Oh, there's Dan.
Hello. Sorry I can't be there tonight, everyone. Welcome aboard, Director Stonebreaker. This is an extension and just a little description of the process for the district master plan. So board members may remember that we have a master plan that was completed in 2010. I think it was started in 2009. And when it was intended to cover till they're typically 10-year plans. So that was originally intended for 2020. In 2016, it was updated to provide some key changes and allow for a little bit more of an extension. It was an 8-year extension to 2024. That brings us to the end of this year. So we're looking at a couple of things. One is to provide an extension on that. And just by the way, it's not the same thing as kind of a general plan for a city. A lot of districts do not have a master plan, but we'll kind of keep that in place as we get lined up for fiscal year 25-26 award of to a third-party contractor to initiate that plan. It'll be a little bit bigger effort than our typical update or the one that was done in 2016. Some information in there, but certainly our demographics have changed, our park footprint has changed, and so forth. Part of the reason folks may want to know why not start it earlier, I think there's quite a bit of good reason to sort of wait till the dust settles, so to speak, on our demographics, but also some of the initiatives that we have with underway right now. So I'd like to take that into consideration with this plan. One key thing that's going to be different about this one is we're going to do an inventory of our park facilities. Not just an inventory, but a status kind of condition with an estimate as to time for repairs, in many cases overdue repairs, but kind of get us on that pattern. It's really typical for municipalities and districts to focus on the new shiny things, but not have a game plan in place on that new air conditioning unit has a life span that should be taken into account. That those pool equipment, we've had a lot of recent pool equipment that had to be replaced. We anticipated it, and yet we did not know exactly what was going to go wrong. So I think this would allow us to be a much more quantitative approach to it. And then some things may be extended over time as their useful life. Other things will have be accelerated on when they need to be replaced. So I think it gives us a kind of a good blueprint for kind of year-to-year decisions on our capital repairs that may be a little bit more than our typical maintenance. We're looking for following actions here: extend the current plan to 2026, authorize district manager to initiate a request for proposals and start the master plan in fiscal year 25-26. We are likely to start the RFP process earlier and have it hopefully aligned and lined up for very early in fiscal year 25-26. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have a couple points I want to share with you, Dan, and the other board members. I haven't heard you allude to this, but it's my understanding as a special district representative on Butte-Lafco that the Butte-Lafco staff intends to initiate a new municipal service review for our district during the coming fiscal year, 2025-2026. So what you're proposing tonight is very timely as it relates to that work effort as well. So if we approve this tonight and the RFP is produced and put out, say, before the end of this fiscal year, then we might be bringing somebody on board in a timely manner that could be working hand in hand with Butte-Lafco staff as well.
That's a very good point, Director McGrean. And by the way, there is on page 17 a little update on LAFCO. I think there were a few questions that came up last time, and I just provided a little update on some of the questions that came up and also their process, where they're intending at the end of 2025 to kick it into gear. And so it is kind of fortuitous timing to have those coincide.
If I may, one other comment I may add is that, by the way you propose this timing, then we'll have time to build for the next fiscal year budget appropriate funding for that work effort, for the master plan.
That's correct.
Is there any public comment?
No, Director.
Would anyone like to propose a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve new business agenda item 6.1 as presented and explained and dialogued.
I'll second.
Madam Chair? Madam Clerk?
Director John Stonebreaker,
Aye.
Director Al McGrean,
Aye.
Director Mary Belfay,
Aye.
Secretary C. Rodwick.
Aye.
And Chairperson Robert Anderson.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
And that now brings us to the election of officers. I am going to open nomination for chairperson for the 2025 calendar year.
I nominate Director McGrean.
Second. Oh, I can't second.
Second.
Point of clarification, fellow board members, you don't need to second the nomination.
It says
This
right
is not,
here.
I motion to close.
no.
Yeah.
Really?
Just a clarification, we should review the rules here on it. So there's a open nomination process. Then
Right.
there's a motion to close nominations.
That's right.
And
My
then
Oh,
in
right.
order,
Correct.
I move to close the
Yes.
nomination.
Second.
I make a motion.
Now it's a roll call vote. Yeah.
Okay.
Director John Stonebreaker,
Aye.
Director Al McGrean,
Aye.
Director Mary Belfay,
Aye.
Secretary Steve Rodwick,
Aye.
Chairperson Robert Anderson.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
All right.
That was just getting you nominated.
yes, and now we'll take on the process goes, each nomination is taken in the order it was made with a vote.
Do we not need a motion on the nominee?
We now need to vote on the nominee because you passed a motion closing the nominations.
That's correct.
Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call?
Director John Stonebreaker,
Can we clarify what we're voting on for the record?
we voted to close the nominations. So that was Steve, and then you seconded, 5 ayes. Now we are voting to approve Al
Director
as.
Green.
Director-
Correct. We just wanted that on the record.
Yes.
Aye.
Director Al McGrean,
Aye.
Secretary Steve Rodwick,
Aye.
and Chairperson Robert Anderson.
Aye. And Mary
And Director
needs a vote.
Buffet, aye.
Okay. Motion carries with 5 ayes.
That brings us to Vice Chairperson. I'm opening nominations. I nominate Mary Bellafill.
I motion to close the nominations for vice chair.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Director John Stonebreaker,
Aye.
Director Al McGrean,
Aye.
Director Mary Belfay,
Aye.
Secretary Steve Rodwick,
Aye.
and Chairperson Robert Anderson.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
That
Now we vote to place her.
Can we get a vote to approve Mary Bellafill for Vice Chairperson?
Director John Stonebreaker,
Aye.
Director Al McGrean,
Aye.
Director Mary Belfay,
Abstain.
Secretary Steve Rodwick,
Aye.
and Chairperson Robert Anderson.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
At this point, I will open nominations for Secretary.
I nominate Director Stonebreaker for secretary.
I also nominate Director Roderick for secretary.
Motion to close the nomination.
Second.
Okay, wait, give me a second, you guys. Okay, so for the nominees, I have Mary Belfay in nominating John Stonebreaker, and I have Al McGreen nominating Steve Broadwick. Correct? Okay, thank you. And then can I please get who closed? I know I didn't get it down because I was still doing the first one. And who made the motion to close it?
You made the motion to close.
Okay, now roll call vote. Director John Stonebreaker,
Aye.
Director Al McGrean,
Aye.
Director Mary Belfay,
Aye.
Secretary Steve Rodwick,
Aye.
Chairperson Robert Anderson.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes. And now we're gonna, so now you'll have, because there's 2 people nominated, Robert, you'll have to do the first one, which was John Stonebreaker. We vote for him. And then if it's not like a wipeout, then we have to vote for the next one as well.
What do you mean by wipeout?
Well, not a wipeout, but like, sorry, if it's not a majority vote.
Trying to help you use the right terminology. We don't express a majority vote as a wipeout, so.
Sorry, didn't think.
Madam
word.
Clerk, can we have a roll call vote for John Stonebreaker?
Director John Stonebreaker,
Abstain.
Director Al McGrean,
Aye.
Director Mary Belfay,
Aye.
Director Steve Rodwick,
Aye.
and Chairperson Robert Anderson.
Aye.
Motion carries with 5 ayes.
Incorrect.
4 ayes and 1 abstain. Yes.
Just going to add one more thing, and that is I'll work with the chair to develop and the clerk to develop a list of assignments that we'll bring out at the next meeting with the chair's prerogative. It would be very helpful if we could get sent any preferences from board members and if there are any meeting dates or times that are that don't work for them for scheduling meetings. So that'd be helpful for us to develop a rational calendar of projected times and dates for the committee meetings and the assignments, working with the chair.
At this point, we are at our district report.
Thank you, directors. So just a reminder, the Terry Ash Recreation Center, well, the staff are blessed with the week of Christmas through January 1st off from work, which is we're all hugely thankful for. I think I just wanted to thank everybody, all the directors for that. And then I wanted to also invite Mr. Amick to speak to the recreation section of the district report.
Hello, directors. I'm at page 18 of your report. This is another one of those months as we close out the year and look at the coming year that most of the things that are on here feel like they're a million years away already. Like they just happened so long ago. We wrapped up astronomy at the lake. That was our 6th up at the Paradise Lake in Magalia. And it was one of the most beautiful ones that we had. It was frigid cold. And then just as we were thinking about canceling the rest of the evening because there was cloud cover, the clouds moved away and it was pristine skies. It's such a wonderful program. We're really, really proud of it. And it was a massive year for us, selling out the first 2 events and then having what we consider at least 80% capacity for the rest of the year. So we're looking forward to doing that again next year. And we're going to keep it in the months of like the warmer weather months. So think like April, May, June, July, August, September, and October. So looking forward to seeing everyone there next year. Everyone. Moving along. We also had the Bags and Beans Cornhole Tournament here at the Chili at the Terry Ash Center. I was one of the chili chefs that did not win. The winner was voted on as the people's choice as well as the judge's choice. So it was clearly the best chili in the house. We had twice as many chili cooks as we did the previous year. And Fortin's Fart Laboratory took the best design, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers won, like I said, people's choice and the judge's choice. We did hand out a new legacy item called the Big Boss Bean Burner Belt, which will be engraved by just like the Stanley Cup trophy and then returned year after year. We've had, it was one of those very, very special events that also was paired with a cornhole event that was, well, because we didn't have the ice rink out on the slab, everything just flowed with much more space. It was wildly successful. And I also wanted to mention that one of the things we did this year is we brought up the Hatchet House axe throwing, and it just rounded the whole thing out. It was just the neatest. So it was great to see most of the directors there. Those that didn't make it, we saved some of my chili for you. Don't fight over it, Mary. There'll be plenty. We also had a car show the following weekend, and to be honest, staff was a little burned out at this point as far as the number of events and it being the end of the year. It was kind of nice to see it come and go, and it still had I think there were 24 automobiles there and a couple of really, really nice motorcycles, but it did feel a little bit like an afterthought, as in we had tried to partner with the craft fair that was happening at the Vets Hall on the same day, and the person that we were in contact with became ill, so we weren't able to pair those two. In future years, that's what we're looking to do, because a car show by itself is neat, but it's just that much cooler when there's other things to do and go look at and those type of things. That was also a networking neighborhoods event, and yeah, it was really neat. In the outdoor education for all program, well, we had some rainy weather at the beginning of the month, but it didn't put a damper on the program. We had the Mesa Vista School went to Tabletop Mountain and flew kites. We may or may not have seen several rattlesnakes out as well. So we're excited for the wildlife viewing as well on these field trips, though a little risque sometimes. We also went to the Terrain Park Climbing Center down in Chico, which is a consistent win for students that can't that aren't normally exposed to that type of apex. We've also had significant progress in the homeschool and onboarding the homeschool vendors, becoming a homeschool vendor. We got some feedback that they would like us to host more extended classes instead of simply field trips. So they would like to purchase from us entire groups or entire series of field trips instead of just one off, which is great news for us because that extends our contract. As opposed to just being single events. The Elements program, which coordinator Kelly Munson reports, that was something that I ran most of the previous year. Now with her at the helm, it has moved up here to the Ridge. They went to the Astronomy on the Lake excursion that I led. It was really, really nice to see all those bright young faces. They also went to Upper Bidwell Park, took an excursion there, and they're consistently looking for ways to integrate up here on the Ridge. There's a couple of characters that are now going to be, I'm missing a page here. A couple of characters that we're hoping to integrate even more. With that, I'm missing page 19. Somebody hook me up at 19? You're the best, Christy. So that program is going really well. One of the things I was really excited to report is we had been working on a contract with the Yuba City College. They had traditionally been an extension of the Chico State program that we've worked with that has come up here and done team building stuff with us. Because they couldn't travel to us this year, we went down to them, and in a single day, we grossed almost $4,000. Netted $4,000, which is absolutely fantastic. We can imagine that in the next year, even if we do one more $4,000 program, that's a massive, massive influx in funding that offsets costs in other places. So look forward to more team building led by yours truly next year because we make good money doing it. And it's a good service. We had a Boys and Girls Club Thanksgiving here, which was the whole room was full of chairs and people, and it smelled like turkey, and it was fantastic. They got to watch a Charlie Brown Christmas, play with RC cars, lawn games, and of course, giant Jenga is always a smash. We had the Pinewood Derby, and there's some really neat pictures of the Pinewood Derby farther in your packet. One of the neat things, yeah, check out those little cars in there. And Jeff Daly, this is one of his signature events. The room is just full of energy and joy and awesomeness. He always does a great job bringing in the right MC as well. We had Willie Davidson on the mic, and there were cheers heard outside on the Skyway from how much fun they were having inside of here. So kudos to Jeff for that traditional program continuing to soar. Another thing that's happened is we've started an after-school sports program that has filled up and then has filled up again. So in working with the school systems, we're seeing great partnership potential to kind of bring back what I think Parks and Rec districts are traditionally known for their recreation, which is leagues that pair with the school systems. So we've got great it started with flag football, and those students wanted to keep their after schools recreation going. So we also started a basketball this winter, and that should be a nod to pre-fire programming that we're really excited to have coming back. We also have use your microphone. Use your microphone. You gotta use your microphone. Al.
Are those being offered at both those elementary schools as mentioned in your staff report?
So we've started them at both of the elementary schools, and they have funding called ELOP money, which is essentially after school, before school, and summertime money that they can't spend on their own folks, so they can spend it on us.
Okay.
And it's with these two schools, obviously in the Upper Ridge, Cedar Ridge being the very Upper Ridge, and Paradise Ridge being here in Paradise, we're going to slowly start to onboard schools in between them so that it connects all the way up the Skyway.
Okay, that's good. But my question is, now that you're shifting to basketball, is that being offered at both those locations?
Yeah, it will be.
The answer is yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff.
Do you want to give me a chance to brag a little bit more? No, there's more to that. The Ridge Hiking Association, we actually had a meeting with that today. That is traditionally part of our volunteer program, as well as part of our recreation program in preparation for the trail systems that will be coming in the next couple of years. And we had, let's see, they got to do the Phoenix 5K, which was on the same day as the chili cook-off. And then they all went and ate pancakes and carved up again after their expenditure. There are pictures on figures 15 and 16 of that. And then the networking neighborhood, it's interesting. It's got this one little line item right here, and it's so much work administratively for us. In the month of November, we had around 550 people registered for at least one event taking place this month, but we also had all these really neat things happening, including the weekly walking group, gardening classes, a film festival, a children's circus day, and many different art classes. So this program really is the lifeblood of expanding and scaling our services. So we're really thankful for your support on that. And I'd like to answer any questions before I bring up Jeff Daly to talk about the pool report.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, directors.
One thing I want to call your attention to, thank you, Scott. While Jeff is, I'm going to pull a Dan. While Jeff's on his way up here, the FEMA projects are officially, paperwork is turned in to close out as of November 8th, 2024, which I just thought was a strange coincidence for the date. And they might have some follow-up questions, but I'm hoping that that gets expedited, because then we have some project revenue for the medium to large size projects, which would come in. So there's about a little over 180,000, for example, just for more road park. So that would be hugely helpful.
Well, I thank the staff for getting that finally submitted by coincidentally anniversary date of November 8th. But let's hope that FEMA closes it out for us in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
Hello. Hopefully you all had a chance to look over the 2024 swim pool reports. It is on page 37. I have a different copy here, so it's not numbered, but I'll kind of go through it and then be happy to take questions on the report. Starts out saying that it was the 6th summer since the campfire that we were able to have 2 pools up and running for PRPD, the Paradise Pool and the Concal Pool. It is pretty unique for a district this size to have 2 pools that we operate. It's unique for probably a district this size to have 1 pool, I would guess too. But we did have successful aquatic programming at both pools. We have the dates of operation there. And then it talks about the attachments that we'll get to in a minute. Programming and participation. Both pools offered swim lessons, recreational swimming, and other programs. The Paradise Pool was also host to the Piranhas Home Tech Charter and Paradise High School swim teams. And if you remember, we started the Home Tech Charter last year in 2023. And that's been nice because when the Paradise High School team goes, it's in the fall, and we're running the heater and keeping the pool up and running kind of just for them. So it's nice to have another group taking advantage of that at the same time. And plus we do charge them for that. The Boys and Girls Club used the Paradise Pool for their summer camp 3 days a week, and the Golden Feather School District used the Concal Pool for their summer camp about 4 days a week. The Paradise Pool hosted 2 outdoor movies, and those were part of the Neighbor to Neighbor grant.
I was at the movie at Concal Pool, so, and there was probably 60 or 70 people there.
That's
Did
great.
Amelia just not tell you?
Huh? And I actually, she
Did she
mentioned
do it
but
under
I-
the table?
Yeah, I didn't know that it was that big.
We also had aqua aerobics.
Mhm. We all, we offered it, but I didn't think that we had anybody do it. I know the summer before we had a
Yeah.
small. So yeah, you can see the numbers of the individual programs there. Obviously, the Paradise Pool has a lot more varied programming. That's where we do our lifeguard training, which Amelia is the instructor for. Getting to the facilities, both pools are brought up and the chemicals are balanced and the pumps are put online, and we were inspected by the Butte County Public Health, and we were issued operating licenses at the beginning of the season. I mentioned here at the time when I wrote this, it wasn't a sure thing yet, but there was plans to reline the thinning and leaking pool shell before the 2025 season. That's happening currently at the Paradise Pool. We're having the pool resurfaced. It's also, I just found out about a week ago that the Concal pool is being resurfaced as well. Both pools had severe leaks and they're leaking lots of water. The Concal pool to the point where that could barely keep up with the well could barely keep up with filling the pool.
And Golden Feather is sharing or taking the cost on for that?
They're taking the whole cost on.
Oh, the movie night at Concal Pool was probably put on by the school district.
That might have been, yeah. Yeah, the Golden Feather School District owns the pool out in Concal, and we take over the operations in the summer. Moving on to the staffing. I don't want to just read the whole thing to you, but our longtime lifeguard and manager, Levi Gorell, he stayed on as the pool manager. He did have some health issues, so he wasn't able to be there that much. But so we have plans for that was going to be his last season, and we have a new manager, Giancarlo Martinez. You might know him as JC. He's learning the ropes to fully manage the pool in 2025. He's got some really good ideas. I met with him today about some things. The Concal pool has Amelia Erickson, which is great to have somebody out there in the community that doesn't have to commute, because when we have to have lifeguards go out there, it's kind of they don't like to drive that far just to lifeguard for a couple hours. Expenses increased at the Paradise Pool, although to a lesser degree than previous years. Some of the increases attributed to increased labor cost, maintenance and repairs, chemicals, and overall inflation. The cost of, this is important, the last sentence under the fiscal impact, sorry about that. The cost of operating the Paradise Pool includes all expenses to run the facility for the entire year, not just the aquatics programming cost. This next section is going over some of the fees, and hopefully you had a chance to look at that. 2024, we charged $4 for entry to the pool. Swim lessons were $50 and so on. And I'm looking at raising the recreation swim and the aqua aerobics price up to $5, which seems reasonable. It's about a 20% increase. They haven't been raised since 2022. Excuse me, as you can see. The swim lessons, I'm recommending jumping up to $70. And below, where the paragraph below that talks about how I did get a hold of Durham and Chico. They both charge $70 for their swim lessons in 24, and Feather River charged $55. Our swim lessons are just about sold out. So I feel like people would be able to handle it, and I think it's time to raise them.
Can we dialogue with you just briefly on that?
Yeah.
Are you anticipating bringing those recommended changes, those fees to the full board before the end of this fiscal year, or preferably before the swim season starts?
I was going to get your opinion on that. I don't believe that we did that in 22.
No,
We raised
I know
them.
we didn't. And
Has that been historically what we've done?
Well, I've got mixed feelings. I mean, if other districts are charging a heck of a lot more and have been related to that factor, I mean, like I say, I have mixed feelings on this, but it would be helpful for you if you find out those other districts anticipating raising their fees again
Raising them again.
as it goes towards the swim season. And I realize we operate on a fiscal year basis, but sometimes it's better if parents know well in advance if foreign activities will take place, if there's going to be a change.
Mhm.
If that's the case. Otherwise, if you think it's not timely, we'll have to just stay the course this whole season again, and then we'll be well into a new fiscal year. And
Mhm.
something to think about. Anyway.
This is, and just to clarify, this is just me recommending this, doing a little bit of research. I haven't really ran it by Dan yet. He's seen this and hasn't questioned it, but I would definitely talk to Dan and Christy. So I guess
So is the
What-
question that these, if they want to adjust the fees, it comes before the board for approval or no? I thought it normally did. I could be wrong.
Let me offer something here. Couple things. One is Jeff just mentioned in passing, that's something that we look at. We do have swim scholarships, which I think soften the blow, or scholarships that may soften the blow for folks that may need it. So that may be one consideration. Typically, programming is done with staff and the rental rates, those type of facilities. It's more of the philosophy is laid out with the board, unless they're substantial, and we certainly may want to float some of these by. But for example, we don't bring up yoga lessons to the board for approval. Those programming fees are a little bit different category than some of our other fees that we have. But certainly the swim one is a big impact and could have some good reason to have some consideration of it, especially looking at other districts, what they're doing, and then kind of the length of time since it's been we raised those prices. So some history would be good, helpful for us to consider as Jeff runs that by us.
Since this is a $150,000 subsidy that we're providing, I think that this is something that the board should at least consider. And I would like to have a little bit more information, especially regarding Paradise Pool. How many of these expenses are variable costs versus how many of them are fixed costs? Because in Concow, the school district is assuming those fixed costs. And here in Paradise, we have to do both the fixed costs and the variable costs of keeping it open and staffed to try to get a better understanding of what are the actual subsidies being provided by keeping it open and how much revenue is coming in to offset that. So, I don't know that we necessarily need to have revenue offsetting the fixed costs here. And so I just like a little bit more a finer breakdown of where the costs are at the two different pools. And we've also had this discussed this regarding the pool report last year. That in the Concow report, it's very easy to see how many people are using the pool, how often. But with the group lessons and the school swim teams and the piranhas and everything, it's harder to get an understanding of how much use Paradise Pool is getting for the amount of money that the district is contributing. Both to the yearly maintenance of the pool and then for heating the pool to keep it open during these months. So if, it's likely that some amount of increased fees are warranted, but we'd like to understand in a policy setting, for example, do we want to get some kind of a solar pool heater at either of these facilities and better understand how much district funds are offsetting these recreational uses? So that would be my input on the matter. I'd like to see this come back with a little bit more information, whether it's here or at committee level.
as far as the recommended prices, or as far as breaking down what uses are costing the pool?
Well, I'd like to understand how much of the costs of operating, especially Paradise Pool, are related to having people use the pool as opposed to the cost of people of merely owning the pool. So if it turns out that keeping the pool open longer for the swim teams is costing us a significant portion of that $150,000 subsidy, then we can say, okay, in order to do that, then you're going to have to contribute to these increased costs, whether it's the increased costs of gas for the heater or whatever it is, or increased because we have, again, in January, we have another minimum wage increase. So that means that the maintenance cost is going to increase just slightly, not 25%, but to get an understanding so that we can tell everybody, okay, these are the actual costs. This is the reason that we have to raise the prices for the uses of the pool.
By the way, let me interject something here. The rates that Jeff's talking about, I don't believe he was talking about the agreements that we have with either the schools or the piranhas. Those are separate agreements that are considered by the board.
One thing to keep in mind too for the swim teams is we're not providing labor for that. We're not providing lifeguards or cashiers. So it'd be pretty easy just to look at the PG&E bills over the course of the year and in the fall and see how much they jump up, because we really don't turn the heater on until the fall. And Concal Pool doesn't have a heater. So
One thing that's making a chance to get it too warm for my wife. She uses I think she covers it, and it's a solar heater.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so
And-
there's a blanket, solar blanket. Mm-hmm.
Just if I interject, for lessons that were sold out and were not at parity with neighboring districts, I would think that would be the first thing to look at is getting parity. And if for those people who that would be an economic challenge, I think we should push the scholarships for those individuals.
It does appear that when rates went up in 2022, the demand was price inelastic, that usage continued to go up despite the individual swim session rates going up. So I don't know that that's going to be a deterrent for most of the users, but agree that there should be some subsidy for the people who do need that.
Okay, so it sounds like, John, you want a little more information on that. Like,
I personally would like information, even if it doesn't necessarily need to come before the whole board, just as a matter of setting policy, that if we as a board were going to purchase something like a solar thermal water heater here in Paradise, to understand how this facility is costing us money and how we can provide this recreation to the community at a more financially sustainable rate. It's $156,000 does seem significant.
Jeff, we can remind the board that we have the recreation evaluation that we turn in the February Board of Directors meeting. That should give us time to be able to drill down on that. And this report is a part of that as well. We can get those numbers for you by then.
Okay, thank you very much.
The one timely thing that we do have to think about, though, is that we're working on the activity guide for the spring, summer, and it'd be nice to have the prices for the stuff rather than just a TBA. So
that's what I was thinking. The
But,
timing is important to the activity guides as well. So it's another factor to consider.
What's the timing on that? When will that go to print?
The goal, thank you, directors. The goal is to have the activity guide done by the end of January, sent to the printer by the end of January, because once it's ready and it goes to the printer, we've received it back in as early as 2 weeks and as late as a month and a half, almost 2 months later. So we want to have it. This is part of our effort to get everything done by the end of the calendar year so that we can have January to cross some T's and dot some I's in order to then make strategic decisions like you're talking about that are financially driven. And it's a real crunch to us in rec when we have programming on top of that, which is why we appreciate the relief of the ice rink not being in. Our goal is to continue to move everything deeper into the current year so that we can be planned for the upcoming year, so that we can then be in the position to recruit sponsorships, drastically offsetting the costs that we'll have better information for you on, Director Stonebreaker.
as far as the fees, I'll be meeting with Dan on that and probably doing some more research, and then I'll have him help me decide what to do.
So it would be imperative to bring something back to the board in January so we can
Vote on it.
go forward before the end of January.
Let's plan on that.
That's a tight window, everyone, because we do have those weeks off at the end of the year. So just we're working on it. We're working on it.
Oh, so I think, just for clarity, the um, board, for the board to vote on contract agreements with the swim team and Piranhas?
I don't think we're discussing contract agreements with the schools, just the basic rate for lessons, admission, et cetera. Any third-party contracts, we'll let them ride until their term.
Okay. I
Let-
just
let-
remind about what Dan had said, that usually the programming rates are kind of within the guidelines of the philosophy of the district rather than a board decision. As he said that, the board doesn't approve the yoga rates, for example, so.
Well, with that in mind, you're saying that that could be done administratively.
L- let me offer something, and you guys can probably discuss a little bit better there, but the idea is that the board sets the policy and approach to setting of fees. So if there's a look at it, then that would be something different. We certainly want to keep input and, the kind of that channel, communication channel open. I don't believe the district has ever gone through the activity guide and started to go through every lesson in class. That's been kind of administrative policy. I think some of the points raised earlier about looking at the cost recovery is a bigger question that should go across programs and not just swimming. So we can do it in a rational way. I think Jeff's suggesting now is just kind of a small, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of a incremental approach just to get us caught up to the neighbors. And if there needs to be a more exhaustive look, that's what we need to look at from the board setting a policy of those fees for all programs, not just one area.
Yeah, that's correct. It sounds like rather than just the two or three districts that I looked at here from last year, I could try to find out what they're going to be charging for going into 25 as well, and go from there and make a decision on it.
I tried to calculate what the cost or what the daily cost of operating both pools was, and it's going to be on the order of $340, $350. So the pool rental rate certainly seems more than adequate. And the other things, I just don't personally have enough information, so I don't need to be micromanaging at this level. I'm just trying to understand more broadly because, unlike these rooms here in this building that we're operating, whether there's a Taekwondo class in it or not, the number of days and the number of hours that we're operating the Paradise pool is more significant. And so any information, whether it's here to the full board or to me privately over the next month and a half, I'd very much appreciate knowing this.
Okay.
Is, as a member of the Paradise Pines Property Owners Association, there's lots of discussions because the pool is one of our biggest expenses and one of our biggest draws. So I'd like to understand how things are different here with the district's facilities to make sure that we can provide the best service to the users.
That sounds good. And back to the swim teams, I believe the Piranhas contract is going to come due before they start again in the spring. The high school and the home tech is good for another year. So it'll be a good time to look at the high school or the Piranhas contract, figure out what it cost us to run that pool in the spring. They're also running their program all summer long. They just come in earlier before we have programming. So the pool would be up and running anyway. So anyway, that'd be a good time to look at the charges for the swim teams.
Jeff, Dan has raised his hand.
Okay.
So I think that means he has something to say.
Hey, but just 2 points. One is, Jeff, I believe that there's precedent for the district to use costs related to utilities for Little League, for example. And I know that there was some kind of formula that was proposed or used for the pool. And this is probably not the place to discuss it, but I'm wondering if you can just discuss that a little bit. And then I had one other comment.
The way we calculate the fees for the swim team, it's basically a percentage of the PG&E, the actual PG&E usage during their time they're using the pool. So I kind of have to figure out if PRPD used the pool 60% of the time and Piranhas used the pool 40% of the time, they're being charged 40% of the PG&E bill for that period of time. In
So I
addition
guess
to their hourly fee as well.
Yeah, I think that's to Director Stonebreaker's point. There is some accommodation on expenses related to utilities, for example, and you know, possibly I don't remember if the full chemicals are there, but I don't think they are. The other point I was going to make is Christie is one of the items on the list there is to do a relook at our rental rate fees and take into account what our actual costs are related to facilities. And I think that gives us a much more rational approach, but that can be a real challenging um, to get the numbers. We're kind of building that system right now, and we'll have much better numbers in the future. But that's something that we'll look forward to bringing back to the board, and that will have, I think, a much more not just market rates, because I think that it has to be taken into account what our actual costs are. And if we choose to subsidize a rental or activity, the board's aware of what those costs are.
All right,
You may wish to add to that.
Okay, I'm going to be moving on to some of the recommendations for next season. I think that the report format is good. We've kind of been tweaking that a little bit each year, and there's some good tables that we're coming up to here at the end. Recruit and train more lifeguards. Honestly, that's probably the hardest part about the program. Is it's a seasonal program, but these lifeguards have to be trained in lifeguard training, which is like a 30-40 hour class that they all have to do in their own time. Usually it happens in the spring when they're trying to finish up their high school year. So it is hard to get people to do it. And the pay is not that much more than minimum wage, really. But anyhow, that's an ongoing thing. We've got a good crew of lifeguards coming back for 25 so far. We do want to try to have some additional programming. I'm going to try to have more swim lessons and hopefully rentals this next year. And probably keep the same number of movies, maybe add one. The swim movie was really successful. We had 2 movies at the pool this year. Kind of looking at the pictures here. Let's move on to the participation.
If I can just speaking off the top of my head, add perhaps another recommendation, maybe not in the near term, but sometime, shade structures. When I go to Paradise Pool, everybody's huddled under the oak tree next to this chain link fence because that's the only shady spot. And I look at the Concal pool, there's a couple of umbrellas, and they're taken probably especially during a hot day. So I know it's an expense, but I think it would be a welcome facility addition.
Good idea. Okay, so one of the things to note at both pools is that we have had the attendance has increased every year since 2018 at both the Paradise and Concal pools. So that's a nice trend line for the recreation swim and the overall total attendance at both pools. We did, looking at Concal, they had slightly more attendance than they did the year before. It didn't go up a lot.
The problem with Concal is there's a lot of swimming holes. Paradise doesn't have much in the way of getting in the water.
So the Paradise attendance, if you notice the swim lessons, we increased the swim lessons by quite a bit. We had an extra session. And that's the number of kids in swim lessons. It's not the number of times they use the pool. So that's kind of a unique number, that one and the swim teams at 66. That's the total number of kids on swim teams. It's not the number they came to the pool. All the other numbers there are actual numbers of people. That's how many people came to aqua aerobics. So keep that in mind. The movie night, we had 355 people between the 2 movies. One thing with that was a neighbor to neighbor event. Both of those movies were, so it was a free event at the pool. So with that, we had a full staff there, probably 6 or 8 lifeguards and other staff all working and getting paid with no income coming in for aquatics. Something to think about.
Now, when we get our new pool room, will that have vending capabilities to make some money?
Yes, it will. We haven't talked exactly what we're going to use it for, but it does have a kind of a roll up style window where we can have concessions. What else? Classes offered that relates to the swim. That relates to the swim lessons. We offered 12 swim lessons as opposed to 7 the year before. And then it gets on to the, yours is all on one page if you're looking at your, goes on to the rentals and the total team hours jumped up quite a bit from 270 to 287, which I was talking about. It's good to utilize the pool when we have that heater running. And like I had mentioned before, the swim team and lesson numbers are individual participants, not how many times they use the pool. So if you wanted to do the math and figure out how many times they use the pool, I did kind of a little quick bit of math. Their lessons are easy. They each come to the pool 8 times. So that's 576 uses. But with the swim teams, the different swim teams are there 12 to 13 weeks. And some of them come 5 days a week. You times that by 60, however many kids it was. And it's both of those together, it's almost another 5,000 people. So it almost doubles the usage at the pool. So if you really were trying to figure out how much we spend, how much it costs per person to come to that pool for the summer, that would go up. Moving on to the income.
Jeff, can you help me? And you might have just said it, but I'm not getting it. Down on this, under Paradise, it has an attendance section that has a total attendance. And on the attendance section, it says rentals, and on the total attendance, it says rentals. And in 2018, there was 3,290 rentals, and then in 2024, there was 35. What? I'm not understanding.
If you look, one rental is times 35 people is how we do it.
Okay.
If you look on the note number 1 down there, it's probably really small on yours. It says pool rental equals times 35 people.
Right. Okay. So then in 2024, there was one group that rented.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2023, there was 35 into 31, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
What was the weather bad or what happened? I don't remember it being a.
This might be opening a can of worms too, but
Okay.
no, what it was the insurance requirements got a lot more kind of stringent to have people use our facilities. So by the time somebody would come in here and get the insurance requirements, it would kind of turn them off to it. They have to have a certificate of insurance 10 days before they use the event. They have to have $2 million of general aggregate liability insurance. They have to, and these are kind of new policies to my understanding in the last year. They have to have a waiver of subrogation. There's like 4 or 5 pages of things they need to rent the pool for a birthday party for an hour. So it really kind of killed the rentals.
Okay,
so there might be something we can look into to that, see what other districts are doing. Maybe we're being overly cautious on the liability. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
On that subject, this is kind of a segue into that subject, but it's my understanding it's not a legal requirement. It's just a policy that's provided to us as a member district from our insurance provider, which is Capri. So if you want me to do this, if Dan wants me to do this, I can contact, or Dan can do it too. We can contact the executive director of Capri and find out what's the origin of this, why is it in place, and how many member districts are participating and requiring that of their own constituents. So we can probably get that information.
That'd be good. I'm guessing that they tell us that they want the maximum amount of coverage that they can get to protect themselves, to protect us.
Just to weigh in on that, I can confirm that Sarah and Dan had collectively pushed back on that as to the extent possible. I think in a larger city environment, it probably is more acceptable and it's probably more widely used by all of the different offerings. So Elks Lodges or, similar structures that are not specially districts. But they were pretty adamant that it is a requirement. And it's on our risk tolerance.
Right.
So if we chose not to do it, that's an option potentially, but then that exposes us to a lot more risk in whether or not Capri potentially would even cover us at that point, and would we have to go to some other option? But definitely it has been an arduous task to, we looked into different options. Is there something that the district could adopt that, would then they can get a policy through us, through Capri or something that, the district could just charge a fee for that would be less than, going to a private vendor for it. There are very limited vendors that will provide this type of event insurance. And it adds a significant cost. So it's not great, but we are a bit risk averse, I guess. So want to make sure the district is protected and,
Right. That makes sense. Thank you.
So we can take a look at the revenue and expenses page, and if you have any questions on that, you've probably seen the expense, the net loss at both pools. What's kind of interesting is the cost recovery at the Paradise pool was 19%, and it was exactly 19% in 23. In Concal pool, it was 19% in 23 and 20% in 24. So it's kind of interesting how close that is. And what that is the income divided by the expense for the cost recovery. And talking to Dan about it, that's kind of the average for public pools, believe it or not. They're very expensive to run. We, like I said, we could do a few more rentals. We could increase some prices and try to do some more swim lessons and things like that, or some fundraisers maybe to cut into that. But with an old pool that needs a lot of repair and maintenance, it just seems like every year those prices go up and those costs go up. You can see on note 2 there that maintenance and utilities was quite a bit of it, as opposed to the aquatics staff and lifeguards. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions on the income and expense.
Well, it would be interesting to see like some of those very periodic maintenance things, like a heater or resurfacing. If you could amortize those over their life expectancy, that might give you a more accurate picture with regard to cost recovery and actual over the span expenses.
That kind of sounds like that report that Dan was talking about at the parks a little bit. The life expectancy of the different equipment and whatnot.
I think one thing that's not in here as a profit and loss is the service that the pools provide. It's a recreational value, absolutely, especially when it's 106 degrees on the ridge. It's or in Concal, but I think what's not captured in strictly financials as depicted here, the benefit to the life expectancy of children in particular who are getting these swim lessons.
Absolutely right.
So I think that's a huge service that's, again,
So I agree. I don't think we should be focused on profit loss or on cost recovery ratio. It's a question of how much service are we providing, as opposed to other ways that the district could be providing service with limited financial resources. So, in terms of, I'm not going to single-handedly set policy for the district, but I don't think that we need to be looking at, are we making all of our money back on this? It's a question of, is the value that we are providing for this expenditure of resources comparable to the value that we are able to provide in other areas? So that's what I would like to be focusing on. And I think that there are certain ways, such as using solar thermal heating, that we might be able to reduce some of the expenditures and then have either more hours open to the pool or other ways that we can use this within the recreation programming.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And thanks, Christy. That's something that I think gets overlooked, especially in Butte County. There's a lot of bodies of water, there's lakes, there's rivers, there's creeks. They're learning a life skill. Also, for instance, this summer, we didn't have any bad injuries at the pool. Yeah, exactly. The lifeguards did a great job. They kept the people safe, and that's kind of at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
So I have a couple questions for you, Jeff.
Okay.
You had talked about getting lifeguards, and then in the district report, it talked about the vocation day that the high school had. So and you guys were there again this year, or PRPD was there again this year. Was there any interest in lifeguards
Were you there,
at
Christy?
that time?
Yeah,
At
I can
this
tell
time?
you that we handed out a ton of flyers and we're saying, what a great job for the summer as a high school kid. You get to work at the pool and
Right.
we had 3 people sign up for the list as
Oh, good.
interested candidates. There was also a woman from Butte College who is like the job center there. I forgot what her exact title is, but she took a staff.
Workforce
Was the
coordinator.
workforce coordinator? is
I
that
believe
correct?
so.
Yes.
Yes. So she took a stack also, and I encouraged her to pass them out broadly. She was going to take like 2 or 3. I'm like, here, take a stack, because I believe it helped us to recruit lifeguards in not last year, but the year before when we first started working with Rotary at the
Right.
Paradise High School for this program.
And
So-
is there, and you and I have talked about this at different times, is there a way to somehow do, I know lifeguard training is 35 or 38 hours or something like that. Is there any way to set up a 3-session training for, I mean, I know you've looked into it, but it seems to be the training is a hiccup for so many of them. Like,
We-
different, this state, this state, this state, this state are your opportunities to.
Yeah, that is what we do.
Yeah.
And with Amelia, knowing these are a lot of high school kids, she kind of caters it around the school day, and a lot of it's on the weekends, a lot of it's on Saturday and Sunday, and there'll be a couple days during the week, from 5 to 8 at night, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
really, with the instructor, it's a lot of work for the instructor also. So
Yeah.
it's kind of just one class, and these are the dates and times. And we did get a couple people drop out because they were athletes and it conflicted with their practice. And there's a whole bunch of people interested, and then it kind of whittles down, and then but we've got a good core group right now, and it
Good.
seems like it's with more people living in town too, we're getting a better turnout for lifeguard interest.
Good. Good report. Thank you.
Thanks. Any more questions?
If it's okay with you, Jeff, while you're up here, could we jump to the district report on item 9 on page 20 and talk about the Elks hoop shoot,
Sure.
if you don't mind, if the rest of the board concurs with that?
Yeah, so the Elk Soup Shoot is coming up this Saturday. We'll be at the Paradise Junior High School gym, starting at 9:30 in the morning. And there's an 8 and 9-year-old group, 10 and 11 and 12, 13, girls and boys separately. And it's a free throw shooting contest. They shoot 25 free throws, and it gets recorded, and we have a winner, and the Elks provide, the kids all get a basketball if they win. There might be a second place prize too, and I have ribbons. And the winners in each of the division get a chance to go. They do get to go up to the next regional final that's in Reading, and then from there they go on to a Northern California final and a state final and whatnot. So it's a national championship.
That's something that you've been coordinating with our district for many years now with the Elks. And just bear with me. I just want to learn something, and I'm not trying to micromanage anything. I just want to learn something about the details. Given the fact that our district now has 2 vans, is there any possibility that we can expand this program where we can make it well known in other areas of the district, so that if some parents want their kids to go and participate in that and they don't have the time maybe to personally chaperone their children during that block of hours, whatever it might be, can we make it known that maybe we can pick these kids up maybe at a central location up in the upper ridge, like where Magalia Community Park is or whatever. Bring them down, get them to participate. Maybe the Elks would help offset that cost if there's a cost involved. I'm just asking, is there some way to help get the word out better and get more participants? Because don't get me wrong, you know better than I how many participants do we get on average, but it's a very, very popular thing for young kids to compete and maybe have a chance to move on and get recognition, that type of thing.
I think it's probably too late this year, but that's a great idea for next
Yeah,
year.
that could be something to think about. It is the Elks, kind of the Elks program, and we run it with them. So it'd be something as far as having more than one. I don't know if they'd want to do that. I thought that's what you were getting at. But this year, I don't know if he's new on the Elks, but Jeff Marcus, who used to be the principal at Ridgeview, I think it was, and the high school, who's very into athletics. He's been really pushing it at all the schools for us. So we're hoping we're going to get a really good turnout this year.
Director, excuse me, if I could support Jeff, one of the things you'll see in the rec evaluation is we take a hard look at the marketing for each program, as well as a comprehensive look throughout the year. And early examinations show that some of the positions that we had dedicated for marketing, specifically in hiring our events coordinator, there was an intensive administrative load to the Networking Neighborhoods grant that we did not foresee. So some of the marketing components that are generally part of a well-oiled system didn't get, we didn't have the bandwidth for. So that's one of the things we're implementing currently in the last month of this year and moving into next year, are fine-tuning our marketing strategies to include getting in better touch with the school systems through Peach Jar. You'll hear that a lot, in that's an expensive yet worthwhile tool. And that same person, our event coordinator, is finishing up a media guide that will allow us to scale the outreach protocol to involve both guerrilla marketing, like Jeff Marcus is doing in the schools, as well as on the radio, and as well as well, you all in the community. So we're going to have a multifaceted approach to making sure that these tremendous programs that we have are more thoroughly marketed. So look forward to that.
If we're on 7.1, I have some comments regarding the remainder of the district report. So, for example, when we're having biomass removal and all of this from our facilities, whether that's Moore Road upcoming or other facilities, is any beneficial use being made of this material? Because when I was at the Nedry location last weekend, some of the Butte environmental people would say that there was a demand for wood chip in the valley, even though we have a surplus here. So I'm wondering, if people are going up to Moore Road in a couple days with their loppers, is any beneficial use being made of this material, or is it all being like hauled to incinerators and at our expense? Is there somebody in the room that would know that, or is there one on staff that I could communicate with that about?
That would probably be Sophia. I don't know if Dan's listening, but he might know too.
Yeah, I could say, I mean, when they're doing work with Broom, for example, that's goes to.
Sure, we're not looking for broom,
Yeah.
but also, whether we're doing, mastication, or whether we're doing, limbing up trees, or whether we're having God knows how much material being removed from the Kudelank facilities, that it just seemed as though with the work that was being done on the Nedry property the other day, it wasn't like they were attempting to reduce the waste wood that was already lying around, and there wasn't that much there compared to some of our other locations. And when they were saying that there was a demand for this, that it seems as though we might be able to supply that demand and also be not paying so much to have this material hauled away, that if other people want the chip, then we could leave the chip or transfer it to a trailer that somebody else hauls away at their own expense for the gardeners and composters, maybe outside the district boundary, but with one of other partner organizations. So I just wanted to know if the biomass that was coming out of our park facilities might be a resource that could be shared with other entities.
I know for now that a lot of the chipped material goes back into mulch for our vegetative areas. And the leaves, for example, that were collected around Terry Ash, the parks maintenance crew came in, I believe it was Monday or was it last week? They collected a massive amount of leaves that had fallen and trucked them over to Noble so that Sophia can work with another entity to do another Johnson Sioux compost project. And so those leaves are being used for that purpose, which is also an educational opportunity where the public is invited to be involved with that so that they can learn how to do it themselves. So I think in that respect, the district does try to minimize the amount that's hauled off. If there is leftover, I'm not aware of how that's handled. And then if there's other contractors that are doing the work, typically that's not something that's under our control, I believe. I think that's part of the agreement if they're doing the work. For example, Yankee Hill Fire Safe Council is contracted with the district. They're using grant funds to do some fuels reduction work and thinning at Crane Park, for example. So what happens with that wood, I'm not aware of, and I don't know that the district would have control over that. If it's another contracted entity that is doing the work, that might be part of their process. But that's something we can look into, certainly. But to the extent that there are useful elements that are waste products, the district does try to incorporate those in our own facilities where possible. But I mean, if it's a source of revenue or just a matter of sharing where there's a resource that's needed, that's if
Okay,
there's
I'm
extra.
not looking for revenue, but looking for a reduction in cost. Just thinking about the huge number of chip trucks that are coming down Skyway, especially with material from the upper ridge, that if the material that we have to remove, for example, at Billy Park, Mark was talking about trees are dying and trees are dying, and you don't necessarily want to chip the stem of the tree, but when you take the tops and the limbs and all of that, and maybe we're using that all in our own facilities and maybe there's a surplus. And I'm just saying that if there's a surplus, then rather than paying to have it taken away, because we know that it costs money to have this taken away, that there'll be people who'd be happy to take it away if we just put it in a dumpster for them. And also, while I'm on the subject of the main part of the district report, when I was looking at the photographs of the rut filling at Paradise Lake, so I've had some opinions about the work that the county is doing on their own unpaved roads, and it was kind of surprising to see that specific choice of pouring some gravel into these ruts. So I was going to ask some rather technical questions about using soil stabilizers and things like that. And I don't know who on staff would be the person to talk to. That doesn't necessarily have to be answered today. But just to understand why we're choosing this particular method, and if there was a way that might be able to come back before the board later to reduce these ongoing maintenance expenses by improving the quality of the roads once, and rather than having to do all this like patchwork subsequently, because as a cyclist, you don't really want to come across all this loose gravel. It's a crash hazard. It'd be much better to have both gravel and mud or clay, and then have it sort of steamrolled in so that you have almost almost an asphalt concrete base. The work that was done maybe 15, maybe 12 years ago on Doe Mill Road, when they finally improved that disastrous road, it very much felt like you were on a paved road when they had a small diameter angular gravel essentially steamrolled into the red clay, and that won't last forever, but it lasts significantly longer than the patches that I was seeing. So I'm just thinking in terms of the long-term maintenance expense. There might be a way to improve the quality for the users of the trail and also reduce the burden on the district.
Does Dan have something to say?
Dan has his hand up. District Manager, are you there?
Yes, just wanted to call out some of this is a very detailed conversation that's beyond this venue. One thing that might be really great to do, Mr. Stonebreaker, is we're planning an orientation. Part of that has to do with your duties and responsibilities and role. The other part is an opportunity to share some of the information that you might be interested in, so that it can come back in a more systematic fashion. I do have some information on the two questions that you raised tonight, but it's just not the time or venue for that here. But I'd be happy to talk to you about it then.
Daryl.
Thanks, Jeff.
I do have one more question on item 7.1 4A, which is the Gold Nugget Museum. And there was a septic system testing and they didn't pass, but there's no references to how they will be replaced or by a deadline and when they'll be replaced so development can happen. Bottom of page 17. Page 1 of 9 of the district report.
Most likely, I mean, we don't have development plans right now for that property. The board did authorize the purchase of a new property that's going to be used for the district shop. And likely that's what, Gold Nugget Museum site. So I'm not
District
sure what
shops,
their,
yeah.
yeah, so it was kind of a shared parcel there with Gold Nugget Museum and the old shop. The shop's not going back there anymore, so there's no reason to, and likely they wouldn't be able to have put septic back because of its proximity to the creek. That was kind of an old design and likely wouldn't be approved today. So, until that property is going to be developed, it likely won't have new septic installed unless there's a compelling reason to do it, just for the cost. If there's, some sort of future plans, then at that time, that would be something that we'd have to consider. But I think to put in a septic system now for no plans, we wouldn't know what size to even do or necessarily.
Just wait for sewer to come on.
It would require an engineered system that would be far and away more expensive than a traditional leach line.
You have to have 100 feet from a water source. You don't have that on those pieces of property.
Well, the main reason this is in the district report is just to enlighten the board as a whole about something that's occurred recently relative to investigating the status of this property. But related to that, it's my understanding, and I'm well aware of this, and it's probably most of the board too, that our district staff is working hand in hand with the Gold Nugget Museum folks on trying to prep the site so they can start using it, hopefully in the spring and late summer, for outdoor activities, regardless of whether or not there's septic capacity. But they're going to need water, obviously, and some other things. And already the Gold Nugget Museum folks have invested some funds of their own to commit towards some improvements on the site as well. So I see this as just information only, and it's just something we need to know. So.
That brings us to board comment. John?
I've attended a number of neighbor-to-neighbor events. I was at the Paradise Equilibrium on November 2nd for part of their film festival. And I was here for the Pinewood Derby, where Willie did a great job. There was lots of cheering and only a little bit of crying. I was at both of the Nudry Park biochar cook-offs. And I've been trying to be present around the community and get to know my constituents. I've also had far too many government meetings over the last 30 days, starting with a finance committee meeting and then planning commission and supervisors meetings regarding the Tuscan Ridge development and the Campfire Collaborative Housing meeting, and just far too much activity. Looking forward to a break over the holidays so that I can catch up on all the paperwork for assuming the duties here in this district.
Steve?
Well, I'm pleased to announce the lake is effectively full. I was there Sunday, it was less than a foot from the spillway. So we can look forward to a 2025 of a full-fledged slate of lake activities. And looking forward to Kids Fishing Day and kayak rentals and all that good stuff. On the sadder side, I think everybody shared a collective gut punch this morning when we heard that Bidwell Mansion burnt. And I think I'm just speaking for myself, but if we can do anything as a district, if there is a program for rebuilding, repairing, if that's indeed possible, then I think I myself would like to put my name in the hat to do something. So that's mine.
Nice, Steve. Al? I got nothing.
Since the last board meeting, I'm pleased to report that I did attend the chili cook-off and the cornhole event. I did a walkthrough primarily, but it was booming, just like Scott described. I'm so proud of the participants and the staff. It was just a great day weather-wise too, and hopefully there'll be more of those types of activities to come. On meetings, unfortunately, I did attend and chair the Finance Committee meeting on November 14th, which is a regular meeting of the Finance Committee. We've already reported on that. On November 27th, on behalf of the district, I connected with the Patch board meeting and their monthly board meeting on the 27th, which was done by Zoom. As you know, I'm not a voting member of the board. I'm just a representative of the district, so I just try to keep pace with what their board is trying to do. In my capacity as a commissioner on Butte LAFCO, we had a meeting on December the 5th. It was a very light agenda, fortunately, but a meeting nonetheless. Some concerns were raised by our executive director about the Tuscan Ridge project. And relative to that, with that in mind, oh yes, I also during the month of November didn't attend, but Mr. Stonebreaker did, but I did tune in to the Planning Commission meeting on that particular project. It took place in November and was very educated to see what was going on there. And then followed that up at their LAFCO meeting that yesterday, the Board of Supervisors then had a public hearing on the Tuscan Ridge project. And long story short, it was approved, not unanimously by the board, with some subtle changes to a few of the conditions recommended by the commission and the staff. I would encourage our staff to get access to those conditions of approval. We need to know how they're crafted and how they relate to our district and how we may be asked to interact with this project developer possibly in the future. I also did not physically attend, but I tied into the Upper Ridge Coordinating Council meeting on December the 5th. I think it was December the 5th. Yeah, that evening, and that was very enlightening. We saw John introduce himself to the community, did a good job explaining his background and what he's looking forward to doing and that type of thing. So that was good. And then last night, there was a town council meeting, and it was packed. I watched it on Zoom because I knew it was going to be packed. And one of the bigger items on that agenda was an update and status, a very detailed status of where the efforts are at this point in time on the sewer project for this community. And bottom line is, it's not going to pencil out the way it's proposed to be done, even though the design work is being crafted as we speak. So in the not too distant future, staff will be coming back to the council, and the council will open that opportunity up to the public at large to get various input about what to do, what options are potentially available short of that shortfall, and whether or not stay with the project as it is, or maybe downsize it, or whatever. That's probably going to happen in the next 2 to 3 months. Very important thing. So that's pretty much it. I do know that CARPD, I don't know if the other board members get the same emails I do, but CARPD is offering an orientation class for new board members as well as current board members if they're so interested. And you can sign up. And I think that's going to take place in the latter part of January, I believe. It'll be online. And just thought I'd share that. That's it.
Thanks, Al. Mary?
Well, all the things I wanted to attend, like the adventure on the lake and everything happens to fall on football weekends. And it's just was my grandson's last year of his 12-year football career. It was very sad. Um, now he's got his last year of a 12-year wrestling career. But I too was shocked about Bidwell Park this morning. It's kind of been a weird grief day today. It's just kind of a Bidwell Mansion, it's just kind of a somber moment. But I did attend the SCORP focus group, and those people came here, and there was a whole bunch of really cool people represented here from a lot of a very variety of organizations. And the two gentlemen that were hosting it or running it did a really good job of just taking a lot of input. And apparently what they're doing is going all over the state. And so they're getting input on how other areas who suffered disasters, how they're recovering and what they can do. They're kind of changing the SCORP focus a little bit. So it was a enlightening educational meeting. And that's it.
Chair, there was one last item I wanted to share under board comments, if I may. Sorry to interrupt you, but thank you all for voting me in to be chair for next calendar year. As part of that new responsibility, I'd like to ask all the board members, and Dan has mentioned this earlier tonight, please provide your input to Dan so he can share that with me as chair, because next board meeting in January will be appointing assignments to various standing committees and ad hoc committees and so forth. I'd like to suggest all of you, if you're going to offer that input, that you get it to staff no later than the last week of this month, because time is of the essence. You know, the office is going to be closed for a full week from Christmas to New Year's. So the sooner you do that, the better, because then it'll be more timely for us being the chair and Dan to sit down and try to work that out based on the input received. And I would appreciate that. The other thing I'd like to suggest, if and when that's part of the agenda for January, and this is just a thought, nobody has to weigh in on it, but I'd like that agenda item to include us discussing the possibility of creating a liaison committee for the Paradise Rec and Park District with the Paradise Unified School District. I think there has some value to that, and I just like to have that as part of the discussion for the board to entertain with staff's input in January. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I would second that direction to staff, especially as recreation facilities that are formerly unavailable at the schools are no longer quite so available to the community. Would very much like to have those discussions.
And I probably should have, this would be my board comment is, welcome, John, as our new board member.
Thank you very much.
Probably should have done that in the beginning of the meeting. For now.
Can I
let's-
say something real quick? Just to piggyback off what Al said, I need pretty much all my board stuff in by the 20th, because we come back on the 2nd, and then I'm putting the packet together basically the very next week that we get back, and it would be a lot easier. So
Corrected, not the last week of this month, but by the 20th this
Yes.
month, right?
Thank you.
And I would just like to say thank you, Mr. Anderson, for a great year serving as our president or chairman. Sorry, you did a great job.
Thank you. So for now, we will adjourn to the next regular meeting on January 8th at 6 p.m. here